Hello class. This film's called Crossroads Labor Pains of a New World View. I think this is very important for biological anthropology because, in fact, our worldview is how we adapt. Our worldview is very influenced by culture. Culture determines the kind of behavioral strategies we should take inside our culture to be successful. But if our culture is removed from the reality of our place in nature, then it's not successful at all. And that's why we see the violence that surrounds us. That's why we see the denial about global warming and that climate change is bringing the end of life on Earth as we know it. This is why we have mass incarceration, epidemic mass murder. This is why we have us against them every step of the way in all our institutions and even our personal relationships. It's all for economic goals of commodification of everything on the planet for profit to the investment ownership elite. This is a behavioral strategy. It's made up out of our mind. It's not something that's of nature directly. It is coming from the incentives that we've been given to plan our world within the cultural paradigm that we're given, and that becomes the end of what we're allowed to think about. This film, hopefully, will get you to peek that there is a lot more. That what we're doing is one of almost endless ways to plan and live our lives out on planet Earth. And we really need to recognize this is not working, and we need to rebuild our world, and that is a hard realization. So let's take a look at this film.
I do believe that humanity has reached a crossroad, and I hate to exaggerate that. I don't want it to sound sensational, but I think it's true. I think our species, the species of human beings, is coming to a place where we are deciding about ourselves. We are making a huge decision about who are we, who do we really choose to be. Who are we, who do we really choose to be? Who are we, who do we really choose to be? We imagine that the issue is a political issue. Then we say, well, it must be a financial problem. The problem is not political, it's not financial, and it's also, by the way, not military, obviously.
Circumstances don't determine who you are, they reveal who you are. And the world that we live in now, the circumstances are changing so rapidly that we're being revealed.
There's no such thing as a problem. A problem is essentially a transition. So I see the crises of today as a transition point for humanity.
Look down on the human drama and discern through your critical faculties what's going on without judging it. Just discern what is this human drama about right now, and what role can I best play in it.
A really good way to look at that is through relativism. Just looking at cause and effect without the value, the symbolic values that we imbue these things with, these actions with, these institutions with. Pull that out and just look at cause and effect and what it's creating. Crossroads Labor Pains of a New World View. Starting now.
The latest Global Risks Report published by the World Economic Forum presents an astonishing risks interconnection map. It clearly reveals how all global risks are interrelated and interwoven, so that economic, environmental, geopolitical, social, and technological risks are hugely interdependent. A crisis in one area will quickly lead to a crisis in other areas. The interconnection and complexity in this map, compared to our surprise at the impact and speed of the recent financial crises, illustrates the discord that exists between all systems we've built and shows just how disconnected we've become. Our attempts at managing these systems are fragmented and simplistic, and not up to the challenges that we face today.
The way we use natural resources is based on our economic system, which is closely related to our social values, which directly affect our psychological and emotional systems and all our actions. What we see in the world is a reflection of who we are. You cannot separate what's happening in the world and what's happening within people. So we're not just in crisis in politics or in economics. Human beings are now in crisis with themselves.
When I studied biocybernetics, it was a wonder to see that the more we delve into nature, the animal kingdom, plant life, ecosystems, we see that everything is interconnected through reciprocal actions, some of which we understand, some of which we still don't. But now, human society is also becoming so integrated that it's like a single closed system that encompasses the entire globe. The crisis we're facing now is actually very unique. We are all closed together in the same system, and we can no longer do whatever we want in it. World leaders, presidents, have lost the ability to manage the people. It's as though the world began to move without any reins, but rather according to a new law of interdependence, of connection, the law that is characteristic of integral systems. And here we see that world leaders, first of all, they can't even make decisions, whether it's G8 or G20, and even if they arrive at something, they can't realize it.
The reason they can't realize this is because the market is not conducive with human life. The market is set up to exploit human life and the planet for the profit of a ruling elite. So the necessities of the people are not included in the legislation of economics. And that's what politics do, that governments are legislating economic control over our lives.
In science, we started as Newtonian physicists, and we started pretending like we are machines. That was the worldview for some time. That changed with biologists coming along. Biology gives a different view of the human being altogether. Biology says that, well, we are machines, but we are machines with competition, with survival in mind. And we fight for our survival, we compete. So our higher values are important only if they are important for survival. Outside of survival, there is no other impetus to the human being. And because of this idea, we have become, as you know, extremely competitive in our society. If somebody else has something, I must get it. If somebody else doesn't have it yet, I must get it before he or she gets it. And this idea is causing havoc in our society.
Much of our progress in human civilization has been driven by egoistic competition. People try to outdo each other, and that creates better science, better technology, etc. However, now we're at a point where this ego drive has become so extreme that it will stop at nothing in order to be more or have more than others. And so companies are destroying the ecosystem, bankers are creating economic crisis, people are building themselves on the ruin of others.
Our food supplies are increasingly at risk, water resources are increasingly being strained, and our financial systems continue to be highly volatile and risky. At the same time, we're also discovering how all our systems are connected and interdependent. Clearly, business as usual is a dead end.
In the previous days and times, we've been involved, not exclusively, but largely, in the process of individual survival. How do I get through the day? How do I get through the week? How do I get through the month? In the 21st century, we're learning now that we can no longer concentrate on individual survival strategies, that unless we begin to coalesce those strategies and learn how we can survive collectively, that no individual is going to survive in the long run. Again, I don't want to be an alarmist, but I realize that we are facing a very critical time now. The separation theology that humanity has established through the years has created a separation cosmology. That is a cosmological way of looking at things that says everything is separate from everything else. And a separation cosmology has produced a separation sociology that is a way of socializing with each other that says I'm over here and you're over there and our interests will not meet unless they do. If they do, we'll try to cooperate, but if our interests do not meet, if we have separate interests, I may just have to harm you. I may, in fact, just have to kill you.
There's an old story, the grandfather who's speaking to his grandson in the lodge, and the grandson comes in and says, I had a dream last night, and in the dream there were two wolves inside fighting, and one was a black wolf and one was a white wolf. And the black wolf scared me, grandfather, and the white wolf made me feel hopeful. Which one will survive? And the grandfather said, the one you feed the most. And so to me, that is the nature of humanity, the nature of humans, is we have both. Which one we're going to feed the most is the one we're going to see in the world.